Community Hotline is made possible with generous support by the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission. The Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission advocates on behalf of the public interest on communications policy issues at the local, state, and federal levels.
Welcome back to Community Hotline. I'm Monica Weitzel. We're in Gresham at MetroEast Community Media. Now for our final segment tonight, we're going to talk with one of my favorite organizations, Multnomah County Library. And with us representing the library, we have Allison Kastner. You are the Reader Services Librarian. Welcome.
That's right. Thank you very much for having me.
It's nice to have you here. And I'm being honest when I say I really do love the library. And the Multnomah County Library is really one of the best. I mean, the range of programs and things you have to offer is pretty amazing. So how long have you been there, and what can you tell me about that?
I've been with Multnomah County Library for 20 years. I started as a youth librarian, worked for many years as a youth librarian. I still miss toddler time and singing to kids. But I'm currently in the Reader Services position, which is just essentially promoting everything to do with reading and connecting people to their next great read. And
I like that. Connecting people to their next great read. I'm an avid reader. I mean, I was, during the ice and snowstorm, I think I got 7 books read. It was great, and they were all library books. I love going to the library.
That's what we like to hear.
It's great, but I love the idea of having a job where you're connecting somebody to their next great book.
It is a great job.
Yeah, it is. Now, has there always been a Reader Services Librarian? Is that is that kind of a new position?
It is. It's fairly new. It was developed a few years ago in conjunction with our launching a program called My Librarian, which is basically a menu of people who work on the library staff, and they share with you their reading interests, and you can choose the person who most appeals to you, sort of like Match.com for readers.
I love it.
And you can say, hey, Darcy, what's my next great read? What should I see you read like I do. Can you make a suggestion for me?
So you like historical novels, or you like autobiographies, or you like, bodice rippers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever.
Yeah, we have someone who reads that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always somebody who does. So, but there's so many other things that the library offers that Reader Services is just a part of it. I mean, you have, you have a lot of digital services now and audiobooks and all sorts of things. Yeah. But really, the reading that's the basic. That's that. Getting back to basics.
Well, it is one of our core values.
Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about the Everybody Reads program, because you're are you in charge of that program, or what?
A lot of people are working on it.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure. Is that a national program? Is that just here in Portland, in the Multnomah County area?
It's interesting you would ask that. A lot of libraries across the country do have sort of a community reads program where they get everybody on board reading the same book. But in particular, the one we're doing this year, it's just focused on Multnomah County.
Okay. So Everybody Reads is really a Multnomah County library program. Okay. I wasn't sure about that. I wondered about that.
Yeah.
And how long has that been in existence, that program?
This is the 15th year for us.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it was last year or the year before I bought the book. That was the Everybody Reads recommendation, and then I had the opportunity to go listen to the author speak and had him sign my book, which was cool. And it was great because there was. It wasn't just reading the book, it was sharing it through other means. Is that kind of what you do with the selection? Is there just one selection every year?
Yeah, one selection every year, and we really feel like reading is a platform for a deeper conversation. So, you might have conversations with your neighbors on a daily basis and talk about the weather, or maybe if you have dinner with family and you kind of skirt around the issue of politics. Or
I was going to say, it's an election year, or was. there's a lot of talk about politics.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't get to have those really deep, intense conversations about something and really explore something. So we feel like the book is a springboard for more conversation, and we can get really into figuring out what the issues are and maybe come up with some actions.
I like that. You know, a lot of times I read for escape. You know, sometimes I just, it's been a stressful week, whatever, so I'll choose a book to start that is, I know it's going to be kind of light and frothy, or it's just a book that, what do you call a beach read or something that, it's just, it doesn't require a lot of thinking on my part. Other times I want something that challenges me. And for example, City Councilor Mario Palmero, who just left here, we were talking about homelessness and talking about, the raising rents and how people become homeless and the issue that has become. And that's something that is a really big topic right now. And the choice this year kind of reflects that, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Now, I haven't read that yet. So can you tell us about the book that we have? Can I?
Yes.
I'll hold this. Tell us about the book. This is called Evicted, Poverty and Profit in the American City by Matthew Desmond. So maybe we can get a close-up of that. Tell me about this choice.
Yeah, so this is a book by a man who's an ethnographer. So
an ethnographer.
Yeah.
What is an ethnographer?
He basically is collecting information about people's day-to-day lives and the forces that are affecting them. And so I don't know if you remember, some years back there was a Nickeled and Dimed by Barbara Ehrenreich, and she decided that she was going to try to get by on the small amount of money that a lot of people tried to get by on. So in this book, Matthew Desmond spent a year in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he followed 8 people as they kind of struggled with, finding a place to live while being in poverty, and then all of the challenges around being evicted, sometimes for no cause at all, maybe just because the landlord wanted to be able to increase the rent, or maybe because there was a complaint about the state of the place.
And sometimes then, it's cause, sometimes it's no cause.
And then sort of this downward spiral. Once you've been evicted once, it's very hard to find another place.
And that's what Mario was saying, that that some people choose homelessness over being evicted because then they won't have it on their record, and they're hoping they can get back to a place where they can rent. But
and there are so many issues around it, and people with kids are much more likely to be evicted than...
and that's the worst situation.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. There was a quote that I thought was really interesting. Well, for one thing, he says in the book that poverty is really just poverty, it's compounded adversity. So that idea of that, every time something goes wrong, maybe something happens with your child in school, you get evicted, you can't make your
work on
payments,
time, so you lose your job.
And then
you have a medical issue, you can't get to the doctor. I mean, or pay for your medicine or whatever.
Exactly.
This picture here kind of speaks to the story. But that is a picture on the front of your Everybody Reads what do you call it, brochure program guide. So this is the Everybody Reads program guide for 2017, and that's the picture that's on it, which really does. I mean, here's a house. This is where you could live, or you could live on the street, or you could be evicted. And this is the author.
Yeah, that's Matthew Desmond. He also he works at Harvard University as a associate professor of sociology. And
so he's no dummy, huh?
He's no dummy. He also won a MacArthur Genius Grant in 2015. He's doing some amazing work around eviction and collecting data around the phenomena, because we don't really know how big a problem it is. And we don't know about the impacts quite often because people don't want it on their permanent records, so they choose to leave without going through a formal eviction process.
And can end up homeless, or
exactly.
or else, which is a sad situation, because that's a tough one. Can you read a passage out of this book?
Sure, yes. There's this passage that talks about the whole experience of being an ethnographer and kind of experiencing with the people you're studying what they're going through.
Okay.
And I thought it was kind of interesting because it talks about, it kind of brings up that sense of the idea of privilege and, you know, what we...
Yeah. And
so
many of us really are, but don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he says, I am frequently asked how I handled this research, by which people mean, how did seeing this level of poverty and suffering affect you personally? I don't think people realize how raw and intimate a question this is. So I've developed several dishonest responses, which I drop like those smoke bombs magicians use when they want to glide off stage unseen. The honest answer is that the work was heartbreaking and left me depressed for years. You do learn how to cope from those who are coping. After several people told me, stop looking at me like that, I learned to suppress my shock at the traumatic things. I learned to tell a real crisis from mere poverty. I learned that behavior that looks lazy or withdrawn to someone perched far above the poverty line can actually be a pacing technique. People like Crystal or Lorraine cannot afford to give all their energy to today's emergency only to have none left over for tomorrow's.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I like, first of all, I just want to say I like that his book, I mean, just from that little bit that you've read, it's like reading a story. I mean, it isn't all just facts and figures, which can get pretty dry and boring. I mean, it's such an important subject. It's nice when it's something that's actually easy to read.
Yeah, it's a difficult topic and it's kind of painful, but it is also in the style of narrative nonfiction, which is storytelling through nonfiction. And he really does tell the stories of these people and what happens to them. You know, he talks about one woman who finally gets settled in another house after struggling to find a place for her and her two sons, and then one of her sons does something kind of dumb, but not, out of ordinary for a kid, and causes a problem, and she is evicted again.
Oh, man. Yeah. I like what he said about something about being up on your, looking down, and not understanding how people have to make a choice of where they're going to put their energy, because obviously there's a lot of things to deal with if you're being evicted or in that situation, just being in poverty. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've been guilty of it many times, that you judge people just seeing them, okay, they're standing at the side of the road maybe with a sign. Well, get a job. You know how people will make judgments, but we don't know what their situation is.
Yeah. I think that's the thing about reading, is it really takes you deeply into somebody else's experience. And that's not something that you can do just by, having a casual conversation. I don't think other media necessarily get to that sort of depth of, walking in someone else's shoes.
Right. This pamphlet, I want to ask you about this. This pamphlet, which is Everybody Reads, 2017, it doesn't just talk about this one book. This explains about a reading group guide, talks about the author, events, film screening. There's all sorts of information in here. Tell me about this program and what all is available.
Yeah.
That has to do with it.
So it's not just about reading the book. It's then, coming out and coming to a discussion, maybe engaging with someone in your community. Our goals really were to create empathy for people who aren't experiencing homelessness, poverty, or eviction. To educate, of course, public libraries are always in the role of education, but allow people to, sort of follow their curiosity and learn more about something. And then to serve the people who might be struggling in these situations by offering them resources. And then just in general, saying to people there are actions you can take. We don't want this to be just sort of a depressing conversation of what can you do. There are things we can do.
So something
and
hopeful.
Actions. Yeah, so some of the programs that are coming up, of course, there's the big cornerstone is the final lecture with Matthew Desmond at the Schnitzer
And that's
Theater.
in March, is that right?
It's March 9th.
Okay.
And of course, you can find out all about this stuff at multcolib.org.
Okay.
And that's the only thing that costs money. Okay. Everything else is free.
And we can't say prices on the air, but if people want the ticket information, they can go to the website and find out. Okay.
And that's Literary Arts that makes that possible.
Okay.
So we're very thankful to them. And I do have to say that the Library Foundation gives us money to be able to buy thousands of books for the community.
I found that out after I bought mine the last time, but that's okay.
Well,
I can, if I can afford to buy it.
They're all gone right now because this book was so popular.
Wow.
But thousands of books.
And when did it come out? I mean, when did the?
It came out.
When was it named the?
Yeah, it was late December, I believe.
Late December, and they're already gone?
Actually, well, so we get the books in early January.
Okay.
First week of January, they go out to all the locations and then to the high schools. And after the first week of January, they were gone.
Wow.
But the high schools that get them through the generosity of the Library Foundation, they commit to talking about the book, and then those students have an opportunity to come for free to the lecture.
Oh, great.
So that's really cool. But then there's a bunch of other stuff. So for instance, we're having renters' rights workshops throughout, and it's the Community Alliance of Tenants that are offering them.
Yeah.
And so if you're having troubles with your landlord or you want to know what your rights are, you can come to one of those.
That's great.
We have, coming up Saturday, February 4th, we have something called the Poverty Simulation.
Yeah, I wanted to hear about that. Now, you were very instrumental in this, were you?
Oh no, I mean, so I just book things, then I let talented other people take over. But this is Coactive Connections that runs this poverty simulation, and it's sort of
a nonprofit.
It is a nonprofit, yeah.
Okay.
And it's a sort of virtual simulation of what it might be like to live in dire circumstances. So every 15 minutes is equal to a week in your life. And you're assigned a persona, so you might be a single father who's returned from war and who has to take care of his kids on a fixed income, and then you have to kind of go to service providers at the outside of the room and try to make ends meet. And
give people an idea of what it's really like to deal with that kind of situation, which is still not anywhere near what it would really be like, but give you an idea.
Usually that's only offered to large organizations, but it's offered for free here to the community, and I think I've heard that it's a very eye-opening and powerful experience, so I'm looking forward to doing it myself.
You said it was February 4th. Where
Saturday,
is it?
February 4th. It's going to be held at Portland State in Hoffman Hall.
Do you know if they have a lot of room?
They have a lot of room.
Okay.
Of course, there's lots of room for participants, and apparently the more people, the better, because it kind of creates that sense of friction in trying to compete for limited resources.
Wow.
So
that's the kind of thing that is good because it gets people really putting themselves in somebody else's shoes.
Exactly.
And so
that's a hard
helps
thing
you to be
do.
less judgmental about what other people are doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah. And then there'll be takeaways from that. There's a community sound-off that Portland Community College is doing. They have a number of events you can go to and talk about what housing means to you and what's the meaning of home. And also Portland State is doing, if you're a person who likes to do more of a deep dive into a book, they have lectures on the themes and narratives in the book.
That's a lot.
What's that?
There's a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, there's so much more.
Okay.
Portland Community Media is doing an activist filmmaking class.
Yes, and they're kind of our counterpart in Portland. So
if you were kind of thinking, I need to be an activist, I need to figure out what to do next, they teach you how to use the devices in your pockets.
As can we.
Yes.
And we have classes and the iPads and the GoPros and your phone and we'll check them out to you and that kind of thing too. So
very cool.
So check out your community media center and tell your story.
Yeah. So, and this could be just a little overview, and maybe you want to go more in depth, then you come here or you come to Portland Community Media and do a deeper class.
We don't have much time left, so let me just ask you one thing. Why is reading important to you? What is, you've spent a good chunk of your life working with the library. Why do you think it's important?
Well, I grew up in a very small place. I grew up in a village of about 700 people, and everybody kind of looked like me. And I think that reading really made me aware of the wider world. gave me a sense that other people's concerns were as valid as mine, and it just made me want to know more about the world, and I think that's what reading does for us. Also all those good things about escapism and being able to kind of take a break from reality, but also to see someone else's reality. And I think it's unique in that way.
There's all sorts of reasons, but that's good. I like that it opens you up to other worlds besides your own, and so we're not the hub of the universe.
Exactly.
There's a lot of other people, a lot of different situations. Well, I think we're just about out of time, so I really appreciate you being on the show. I am excited to read that book. I'll be checking that out. It's out of the library now, but they'll have some to check out later. Is that right?
However, there are plenty of circulating copies, and don't be daunted by long holds lists, because we have lots of copies.
Okay, good.
Lots of ebook copies. We have lots of downloadable audio. And then hard copies. So you can wait a little bit. Also, just Google some video. Matthew Dismond has done some really amazing interviews. He did one for Book TV where he kind of hits all of the points of this book. So you don't need to read the book to participate in the program.
Okay. So if people are readers, or if they are just interested in the subject of eviction and tenants' rights and homelessness, and this is a good direction to go. Check out the library website. Check out the Everybody Reads program, and if you have questions,
mulcolib.org.
We can go to the website, and we'll just we'll find you and ask you questions.
Yes, please do.
Well, I really appreciate Allison, Reader Services Librarian Extraordinaire. Thanks for coming on the show, and we'll see you at the library.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. And thanks so much for watching Community Hotline. We're at MetroEast Community Media, where we can teach you how to tell your story too. I'm Monica Weitzel. We'll see you next week.
Possible with generous support by the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission. The Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission advocates on behalf of the public interest on communications policy issues at the local, state, and federal levels.